So we're going to try, despite the time constraints, not to speak too quickly, but we've got a lot to share. So I'm Scott Price, I'm Director of Product at BrainPOP. BrainPOP has been making educational videos, animations, and supporting materials for 17 years and started a site called GameUp, which is mostly, about 6 years ago, that's mostly about getting great games that are out there from the nonprofit world, universities, museums, and getting them published. However, we've built a couple of games in-house, and this is going to be about one of them.
And I'm Brendon Trombley. I'm with the Institute of Play. I'm a senior game designer. The Institute of Play is a nonprofit all about transforming education through play. We do that mostly by working with teachers and schools to help them design curriculum, games, and game-based learning curriculum.
Yeah. So we have a video that we can use to introduce the project. Just generally framing it, we had a chance to work together on what felt like a dream project for us. We learned some things, we were surprised by things, and that's what this talk is going to be about. So here's a bit about the project.
Welcome.
I've been in educational game development for about 8 years now.
I think we've got, wait, we haven't heard from Karina yet.
And I've seen a lot of projects come out of excellent research that never get to see the light of day. I've also seen teachers struggling to adapt commercial games or games that were made by other folks to their classroom. I think it's really important for those two sides of educational games to work together.
Okay, so welcome everybody to our first pre-production.
The game Meaning of Beep was developed by the Institute of Play in partnership with their teachers and students at the school Quest to Learn, and we are digitizing that game.
This is a very unique experience for the Institute of Play, working with an industry partner to bring a game that we've worked on to life in the digital space. We had all of this experience using the game in the classroom. We got to see how it worked, what was successful, what was less successful, and really allowed BrainPOP to get some insight onto how to make the game better as they moved into the digital version.
So we've been working on the game for about 8 months now. We're really looking forward to our playtest tomorrow to see how the kids enjoy it and how much fun they have playing the game.
The playtesting element of making a game is absolutely crucial. I remember showing my game to my friends and needing someone to say, hey, does this work? Am I dreaming? Does this work? Are you having a good time as well?
Hey guys, my name is MKG and I'm from BrainPOP. I'm here to help us out with playtesting one of our new prototype games. So you guys are the first ones to see this digital version of the game.
Playtesting is one of the most important parts of the game design process because by bringing students into the playtesting process, they become co-collaborators of the game. We observe them playing, but then we also ask them what they might do to make it better. And so we're empowering them to help participate in the design process.
Why? And you're just sitting there tapping the screen because it keeps on going dark. Just waiting.
At BrainPOP, we want to make sure that our process from beginning to end includes the voice of teachers, of students, of partner game developers, and we're excited to do that with the Meaning of Beep and any other games that we design in the future.
So we wanted to show that at the beginning because it really kind of framed the project and what we're talking about today. We had an opportunity to have an experienced developer and distributor working with experienced game designers at the Institute of Play, working with real teachers, and we got to play test throughout the entire project. So it felt like a dream scenario, so that's what we're going to talk about.
Okay, so yeah, I wanted to show you guys kind of how the game works, and instead of showing the actual digital version in motion, we're just going to do it with slides because it's simple enough to be able to accomplish that. So the Meaning of Beep is a context clues game, so it's all about figuring out the meaning of a hidden word by using the context of the sentence surrounding it. So you're about to see 3 separate sentences, and keep in mind that the hidden word is the same in each sentence. So all 3 sentences are going to be context clues for the one word. So the first sentence is, the apprentice wanted to be beep, so she gathered all of the tools and prepared the workspace ahead of time. So if you're playing the game, you would be with 3 other players. Everyone would then type in their guess, so you can think of what your guess might be, and go to a voting phase. So here's what these 4 players have typed in, and then you would be able to choose which one you thought was the most likely meaning of beep, and then we move to sentence 2. So you can mentally see if you pick one of those. So then sentence 2 is, I thought the 60-in-1 multi-tool would be beep, but it took way too long to find the tool I needed every time. So keeping in mind that this is still the same word, so if you have confirmed maybe your suspicions as to the word, or maybe you have different suspicions, think of what your guess might be. If you're repeating your word, try to think of a synonym of the word, because the game will accept both the word itself and synonyms. Then we would move to a second voting phase. In this case, the student has chosen to super vote, which is a cool way to get a little extra points, but if you get it wrong, you lose points. And the third sentence is domesticating something makes it beep to humans, including taming wildlife, roping livestock, or selectively breeding crops. So this is your last chance to get the meaning of beep or a synonym. So after all of that, assuming there'd be another third voting phase, which we're going to skip, we would reveal the meaning of beep. In this case, it was useful. And so if you had voted or guessed useful or any of these synonyms, you would be getting points for the game. That's kind of how it works. It's multiplayer or single player. You can play against AI or with your classmates. So that's kind of the idea. I wanted you guys to be able to understand how the game works so that the anecdotes and stuff will make sense as we talk about them. So as the video said, this game started as a paper-based game at the school Quest to Learn. I led the development of it in the paper version, and so this is kind of the timeline of it. Development started late 2013. We did some playtesting in the school and created the paper version for its initial use in the classroom in the spring. It happened in like 8th and 9th grade English classes. After that, the teachers continued to use it. They actually did some really nice iterations themselves, simplified it, and we learned from that. Then we moved into the partnership with BrainPOP. We had our kickoff meeting where we decided on which of the Institute of Play games to work on, and then went into this discovery period, which is really important for making the successful transition to digital, and Scott will talk about that a little more. And release will be just a little later this year.
Actually, Monday.
Release will be Monday. Great. So we have 4 lessons that we have kind of decided to share with you guys based on our experiences both with this collaboration and with how the design process went overall. So the first one is to target a skill and ground it in content, or at least target a skill and maybe ground it in content. We found out very early on that there's this tension between, is a game for teaching content, or is it about practicing or teaching a skill? And what you see here is an example of the same sentence twice. The first sentence is actually how the earliest version of the game, the first paper prototype, treated this context clues issue. It actually showed the word, and it was up for the students to try to make their guesses on the meaning or the synonyms of that word. What playtesting just showed us was that students with prior knowledge of that word, either parts of it or the whole word, had a huge advantage, and they could totally circumvent the skill of using context clues to play the game. So really, what we had was a vocabulary quiz, not a game. So the sort of intuitive leap there was to actually think, well, a student who doesn't know that word, it might as well just be gibberish to them, right? It's just a bunch of letters, they don't know what it means. So why don't we use gibberish as the equalizer, completely hide the word, and now you can only use context clues to guess the meaning of the game, the meaning of the word. And in this case, we also changed which word was being hidden or being looked at. So instead of domesticating, we chose the word useful in this case. And we'll talk more about that later as well.
And from BrainPOP's direction, we've got movies and supporting materials on over 800 topics that kids might be interested in. So we initially were looking for a game that would take advantage of all of these vocabulary libraries that we've got for all of these topics, as well as address the need that teachers have to teach the vocabulary that's specific to their domain. So common words that kids might already know, but it means something different in chemistry than it does out in the rest of your day. So we initially were interested in a vocabulary game, but we saw during that discovery period that we set aside, as we play tested the version of the game, we talked to the teachers who had taught it, we saw this tension that, oh, here's something that's actually, the game is actually about a skill. And that skill could then transfer across all of these topics. So even though we'd wanted a vocabulary game, by looking at the skill, we could say, you know, we can teach this in almost any subject area. We can use this game productively. And the switch that you see there, you know, for instance, even if that's the word, if you're going to use it as a context clue, you're going to have to understand it to guess at the meaning of the game, right? So it's still, the meaning of the game is still there, but focusing on the skill, that second sentence demands the use of the skill, not just knowledge of the word.
So this sort of tension between do we want this game to support vocabulary development and also the skill of context clues, through a lot of playtesting, we came to a very specific pattern on how we presented the sentences. So we have to start off with a soft context clue, give you a general idea of what the word could be, then a strong context clue following that, and this one uses a contrasting statement to give you more of an idea of what that word is. Now, both that first and second sentence are not based on any sort of BrainPOP topics. They're just general sentences to give context. And so we decided that the third sentence could be the content-based clue. This would incorporate vocabulary and knowledge from whatever topic is at hand. And as we also pointed out, that even if a vocabulary word is being used, it was not necessarily the word that was hidden. It might be used as context instead. And you're still developing the skills with the vocabulary while also developing skills with reading context clues in general.
So because this project started out as a paper game that had been iterated on for a couple of years, we set aside that discovery period, it was a couple of months, where we just listed things that we knew were going to change and things that we wanted to change when we went from paper to digital. Because we didn't want to give up, as Aaron, I was going with Darren. As Aaron said in the previous talk, there's a lot that you can do with paper games in person, live, that you can't do with digital. So we didn't want to give those up. But when you go digital, you have some new options. Things like you can automate scoring, and we had seen that how to score was sometimes complex and took time. You can give kids automated hints. You can react to what they're doing in a way that maybe the other players in the game don't yet know how to do. But you also open up new problems. It's very easy to say, this table, you guys are playing with this word, here you go. But saying, okay, now log in and find each other, play this game on this topic is really hard. And finally, there are some cultural challenges as well. The game, the paper version of the game was a derivative of, or started from, a game called Wits and Wagers. Anybody who teaches in a public school can see the problem there. Wagering and gambling is not something that teachers are often allowed to teach. So we had to work around, well, what if we call it something different? What if we change the mechanics? How is that going to work? And we ended up coming up with this neat thing. We realized that although we called it picking, and we didn't make it feel like you were wagering a gain or a loss, that idea could indicate in the classroom confidence in your answer. And that was a really cool thing that we wanted to keep. So we just had to represent it.
Cool. So our third lesson is one that many game designers know in their hearts, but it really was underscored in this particular process, is to iterate and empathize. This project at every stage during paper, during the digital development, was play tested with students in real classrooms every 2 to 3 weeks, the entire time. They saw the ugliest prototypes all the way up through the most polished, beautiful betas. One thing that we found was that in an extremely highly iterative process like this, it actually can cause a bit of a problem. It's a little easy to overreact to play tests and to sort of delay design decisions, and you get in a little bit of this like cycle of procrastinating on those important decisions. So what we say is that, yeah, iterate a ton, but also be bold. You know, sometimes just take that chance, and make a strong design decision. Just don't be too bold. Make sure you're still relying on those play tests. Now, as far as empathy goes, of course you need to empathize with the students and see where they struggle. The original intuitive leap of blanking out the word as opposed to showing it was due to empathy with the students. It's also really important to empathize with the teachers. And this is so that we can really know how they want to best use the game. The original teachers who used the game at Quest to Learn actually reported to us that the best learning outcomes came after they played the game the first time, and they were assigned to generate their own sentences and own clues. And that was really a lot of learning came from. So that has actually informed decisions to incorporate user-generated content into the digital version as well.
Yeah, in the in Game Up, we offer supporting materials for the games as well as for our other content. And so we made sure that there was a paper version right there on hand that after playing the game, the teacher could go and print it out, and the kids within 5 minutes, or maybe they printed it out ahead of time, the kids within 5 minutes could be designing their own, because those teachers had said that that was actually more useful to them than once they'd played the game once. So that brings up another point, which is to consider sort of the metagame of the game. There's a game, and if you're a designer, this is a big point for you. The game is not just between the player and what's on the screen, or even the player and the algorithms and the systems of the game. It's played in a room with other people around. They care about it for certain reasons, often different reasons if you've got 30 middle schoolers in a room. So design for that, and you can go a lot further and make something that's a lot more practical for people to use. That can go all the way from little things like make sure that there's an audio control so that when the game starts up, you don't have to spend 5 minutes scrambling around to find the audio controls, right? All the way to considering 6 different ways of teaching or using that before a lesson, after a lesson, as drill, as review, as a design exercise when you've moved on to another unit. Finally, there's the metagame of the school. And if you're looking to distribute this could be a talk in itself, but if you're looking to distribute your games in schools, schools have a lot of things going on. During our playtests, in fact, the one that most of the video was shot during, we showed up, we got the game going, we made sure it was all working, we had a relatively bug-free version, and then the school had blocked the port that we needed for multiplayer. So everybody drew out their device because we'd made it work in HTML5, and they played it there over cellular. And fortunately, we designed so that it wasn't going to use up anybody's data and whatnot. But that, just blocking. What platform? Can they install Unity or Flash if that's what you're building in? Do they have a VR headset? Do they even have a browser that can support HTML5? You can't take these for granted. And finally, privacy. So this game, in order to support matchmaking, we needed to give the students names. Now, these are the logged in names. We're very careful with them. But the moment you've got the name that you need for matchmaking in the game, you've got to be very COPPA and FERPA have a lot to say about what you can do with that data. So you just got to design for it ahead of time and be careful.
Okay, cool. So thank you guys for, we're just going to recap real quick, and then it'll be finally time for some lunch after all of this delay. So the 4 lessons that we said, target a skill, ground it in content. The larger lesson there is that, you don't want to make a game that drills content. You want to make a game in which it makes a setting in which a skill is useful, right? Secondly is to use the affordances of both digital and paper if you can, or to just really take advantage of those whatever affordances that you have. The third is to always iterate and empathize as much as you can with everyone involved in the process, students and teachers and whoever else. And then, to support the metagame around your game, understanding the classroom setting, understanding.
Can I add a 5th one?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is really easy. We had this wonderful scenario and we wanted to share it at Games for Change because we had these 2 companies that wanted to work together. But there are lots of teachers out there who have great exercises that are ready for this kind of transformation and can be turned into LARPs or turned into games. There are a lot of tools out there for making your own game and a lot of people who are experimenting or experienced in design. Talk to each other here too, but afterwards. This wasn't about these 2 companies. Anybody could do it. And in fact, on Game Up, we've got a handful of games that were made by teachers, just even before we got involved. So do this.
So that's our talk. Thank you.